everyone, welcome to Stars, Stripes, and Insights. It's a podcast by the U.S. Mission to the UAE, and I'm your host, Elvin John, Political and Economic Officer here in the U.S. Consulate in Dubai. Today, I'm really excited to talk about a really important topic, the power of communication. The U.S. Mission to the UAE recently held its first ever Women's Economic Empowerment Summit back in September 2024. It was a great success, and one of the main topics was effective communication and especially how it advances women in leadership, how it fosters economic opportunities, and drives meaningful change. And who better to talk about this really important topic other than today's guest, Sabina Uttam, Managing Director and Founder of Ennismore Communication. Now, Sabina has an amazing career, which has spanned over 13 countries, including roles at the BBC, Speakeasy, Schlumberger, and she's had clients including Chevron, Shell, Visa, Coca-Cola, Nestle, Merck, and Mubadala, just to name a few. My goodness, that's amazing. Sabina, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm very well. Very happy to be here. Thank you, Elvin.
Fantastic. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. And for those who are listening or watching, I'm really excited about this podcast because it's not just something we're going to be talking about. I think we're all going to learn something today. So get your pens and papers out, if people still use that, or get your notes app out. But I'm really excited to talk about communication. But prior to starting your own company, you specialized in strategic partnerships, right?
Right.
Business development and communications, and marketing at Schlumberger, empowering executives and leaders to speak with clarity, conviction, and confidence, whether on stage, in the boardroom, and of course, one-on-one. Wow. I really think I'm going to be put on the test today. And, as diplomats, communication is basically our number one pillar, right? If we can't communicate, we really can't be effective at our job. So I'm excited to learn something for myself as well, to do my job better. So let's dive right in. So tell us, how did you get into the space of communication?
Well, thank you very much for the introduction, Alvin. You mentioned that I did start my career at the BBC. So at the BBC, they train you on how to deal with difficult people that you're interviewing. That's one side. And the other side is you're often working on daily deadlines and you have to put together a story very fast. So that means assessing what the editor wants to go through, then finding the people who are going to talk about it, persuading them to do it in a very short time frame, and then editing things down. And when you're put under that pressure and you're constantly having to approach people that you might not know, you've got a very small window to gain credibility and get them to say, yes, I'll do that.
Absolutely.
So, but I would say more than that, then working in the private sector with corporates and then ending a career in the largest international oilfield services company, working in new energy and sustainability, you're having to rely on partnerships with government, with the private sector, with stakeholders, and you're having to articulate what you're bringing to them. And all these roles, you need to be a very good communicator because people have to see that you're credible and then want to work with you. And a lot of business and diplomacy is building relationships.
Absolutely.
And building those relationships that you can go back to after 10 years because they remember you, they liked you, and they understood what you wanted from them. I mean, that's a very important aspect of communication.
Absolutely. So after having a very illustrious career, obviously with very big multinationals, what made you kind of step out and see, okay, this is really where I want to be in teaching others to communicate better? How did you come to that conclusion?
Well, I think it's a fundamental skill, and often we aren't taught that at university, at school. And even what was a real eye-opener for me is when I worked with corporates and they put through their senior executives, leaders who actually speak frequently, and they put them through this 2-day communication program to help them elevate their gravitas, their credibility. Mm-hmm. And very often it's for different reasons. I would say I noticed that as people progressed in their careers and moved up in the corporate ladder, you move from being subject matter experts and having to be detailed to actually needing to have a vision, a strategy. And That bridge is quite difficult because a lot of people get lost in detail and they're not able to be concise. And very often, actually, as people get more senior in roles, they find it very hard to get honest feedback because no one's going to tell them.
Right. They get surrounded by yes men.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes people think they're very good. I mean, they obviously have reached a very senior level if they're president of a division. But because they don't get that feedback, they often might come across as arrogant, or they might not be resonating with their listeners, and they might not be aware that there are certain things they're doing, bad habits that have festered, and they're not going to improve. And when you're speaking on behalf of your country, your consulate, or your clients, your customers, you want to put your best foot forward and come across as the best version of yourself. So there are definitely areas that you can work on to improve. And I actually take a lot of passion and enjoyment seeing people transform in a day or two just by small techniques. So that's why I decided to make the shift.
That's fantastic. No, definitely. I mean, as you know, I've been in for almost 15 years now, and I constantly try to find myself wanting to improve in communication because, again, just similar to your BBC experience, we do the same thing. We're always reporting back to Washington. We're also talking to people. We need to convince them to share with us details of what's happening. So that's a very, very key point in that credibility. And so you mentioned something which was very interesting, is that so corporations are actually putting together the leaders into these type of 2-day programs. So what do you think the corporations are getting out of it, and why are they pushing leaders to do this?
I think they see that there's been a big shift in the business landscape. A lot of people talk about AI, they talk about machine learning, but at the end of the day, fundamental communication skills, you're still going to need them. You're going to have to convince stakeholders, shareholders, consumers that this is the way to move forward. So I think that basic necessity of human interaction is all the more important. And it's getting harder and harder as people are now more reliant on the internet, and people aren't engaging as more. If you look at children these days, I grew up in the 80s, so I didn't have access to a mobile phone and an iPad. But I think it's even more important now to ensure that people aren't going to be afraid of their own voice, and they're going to be able to use communication to improve. And corporations like Fortune 100 companies, they still need to convince their shareholders and teams to do things they want them to do. And that's why they go through this program, because they see that people can communicate with more of an impact to drive results, which is the bottom line for any entity.
Absolutely. It's important that you mentioned, how people have become so attached to their digital devices, and also, tell me a little bit about what do you think that how COVID and now people pushing towards, online or Zoom or everyone being on their phones, how has that affected communication one-on-one or even speaking directly to an audience?
When you're communicating online and remotely, it makes the communication even more demanding because you're having to bridge that gap, that connection that you can have one-on-one when you're in person. So it's even more important to be a good communicator when you're communicating virtually.
Absolutely.
To get things done, because otherwise people are spending hours in meetings and workshops, and then people leave and they don't understand what the next step is and what they need to do. So I would say people have to work harder in the remote setting, so it's become more key.
Just as much harder.
Maybe even harder.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Even today. So now I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yes.
What are some techniques, and I know people who are watching, they want to know, what are some techniques that you can tell us about that we can put into practice immediately? Something simple.
Okay. Well, today's a chance for you to be exposed to some of those communication skills that help you with your credibility and to elevate your presence.
Awesome.
And I'll give you a framework of ideas that then can be put into practice immediately. But before I do that, I want to ask you, what makes a great communicator? Who are some of the speakers that you admire and why?
Wow. In the past decade, we've seen so many different, politicians especially, who have come across and really communicated directly to their audiences. Obviously, President Trump is He's well known. He's as a communicator. He has a different style than most politicians do, but people find him to be very authentic. He cuts through the BS, as they say, and speaks directly to people. And he's been very effective. And he's known as a great communicator, not just with speech, but also online. He's been people talk about him as a great marketer, right? Even online. But in the past decade, I mean, people also talk about Obama as a great communicator, even though he has a different style than President Trump. But President Obama also, has his own way of being authentic and bringing credibility. So it's different styles, but I think fundamentally people want to see the authenticity when they are speaking.
Yeah, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head, Alvin, because people can have very different styles, and you admire your speakers and you resonate with them, but they can be very different in their delivery. But I'm going to tell you about 3 fundamental elements that actually hook you as a listener, and I'm going to call it the 3 C's: credibility, conviction, and connection.
Okay.
So let's talk a bit about what they look like. So we started this podcast. If you had started speaking to me and my body language was like this because, I'm comfortable here, it's a great seat. I mean, how am I coming across to you? Or even, I've seen this in many panel discussions, very confident people, like leaning back in the chair a bit like this.
Right.
And I'm talking to you. So you can tell me, as a listener, how am I coming across?
Like you don't care.
Right. I might think I look really relaxed, so you're going to engage with me. It's really interesting to note how our non-verbal communication already sets the scene, and every seasoned speaker knows about the stance and a neutral stance. So I can tell you a bit about that. You're already doing it, so you're very good. It's having your back up against the chair and being grounded. And not shifting and fidgeting. A lot of people who have a lot of adrenaline or they're nervous, they tend to move their foot or move around in the chair. I went to listen to a wonderful speaker recently, and he was walking across the stage thinking that he wants to resonate with the audience, but what it did is it detracted from his messaging because
Super
he was
distracting.
shifting around.
Yeah.
Yes. So the neutral stance and being grounded, it gives you credibility immediately, even before you start speaking, and it also helps you reset as a speaker. You're not going to be in one spot for your entire presentation or your entire conversation, but seasoned speakers know that they can always come back to this stance. It helps them with their breathing. So people who get nervous often tend to tense up, and then they tense their belly and they hold it in, and then you're speaking from here.
Right.
So you're not projecting your voice and you're making it harder for the audience to hear you. So the stance is very important. And then also your pace. You spoke about Obama. I wanted to come and do this podcast, and you told me I only had 15 minutes, and I have so much I need to get through, but if I need to try and speak really fast, I'm sounding a bit frantic.
Yeah.
And when you're frantic and you try and get more in, you tend to forget what you're saying because you're not focusing. And a lot of women, they do this. They're often going into a meeting with their direct boss, and the boss is like, look, I said I had an hour, I've got 10 minutes, get through this. And then they start speeding up, and pausing gives you the time to think about what you're going to say and your audience to digest what you're saying.
Absolutely.
And a lot of women, because you brought up the Women's Summit earlier, when they speak and they get a bit nervous, they tend to end on an upward inflection, but they're not asking a question, and it makes them sound like they're asking for permission.
Right.
So if you could take 2 things away from this podcast, there's obviously a lot more, but it would be your stance, being grounded. You do it when you're standing as well. It's just having your legs hip width apart, your shoulders down, your knees soft, and you can keep going back to that to reset yourself and using the power of the pause, which Obama does. Trump is excellent at being authentic and connecting with you as an audience. He comes across as charismatic and friendly, but those 3 C's, I haven't talked about one of them because we'll get into it, but the credibility, the pause will give you that, and your stance, and the conviction, that's about having energy and caring about what you say.
Absolutely. No, those are 2 really important points. I've had to speak in front of a lot of different audiences, and those 2 are really, really good, because especially when you go in front of audiences that you don't know very well, you really can be fidgety.
Yeah.
And you can be, moving around too much, and that's a really great point. And of course, second, what you said about pace, pause. It really gives people the time to digest. So those are really great points.
Thank you. And it also makes you look grounded as a speaker.
Yep, absolutely. So no pressure because we are doing a podcast, but how do you keep your audience engaged? What's one of the points that you would say is, okay, this is how you can really keep people engaged in what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, that's really important. You get the stance right, you get the pausing right, but if you're talking to people and telling them that we're at a crossroads and cybersecurity is really critical, I mean, how convincing do I look and sound?
Mm-hmm.
You have to make your ideas seem like they're important. I mean, do you have children?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay, so remember the first time your child could walk and would go out to the front of the road and was about to go in the road and there were cars. You would say to your child, don't you ever do that again.
Mm-hmm.
There would be conviction there. There'd be emphasis. You'd open your mouth and articulate it.
Right.
And your child would be like, okay, I've done something wrong. I'm not going to do that again. It's the same in communication. Your ideas are important, so use emphasis. If you've got something important to tell someone, emphasize certain words. Don't go into monotone because then people are going to switch off.
Exactly.
And a lot of people, even senior presidents in companies, they tend to mumble, and you're making your listener work really hard to understand what you're saying. So I would say opening your mouth, even though people think it looks ridiculous, you wouldn't imagine the difference it can have, especially when you're on the phone, but also one-on-one. So am I allowed to, we can try like an exercise if you don't mind?
That'd be fun. Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, should we do it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to give you a sentence. Just read it. It's a short sentence. And I want you to just read through it.
Okay.
Yeah, first read it to yourself and then read through it for the listeners, please, as you normally would.
So the top.
Yeah,
here.
the bold
Okay.
sentence, please.
If you want people to respond, you not only have to know what you're talking about, you have to look like you know what you're talking about.
Perfect. Okay. Now I want you to do it again, but in every place there's a comma, or I want you just to pause a bit longer than you would, but not too long. Just take a breath.
Okay.
And then I want you to really open your mouth.
Okay.
So you feel uncomfortable, but try that for me, please.
All right, let me try that.
Okay.
If you want people to respond, you not only have to know what you're talking about, you have to look like you know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you it's better. I didn't look at you because I wanted to imagine that you were on the phone, but yes. But first tell me, how did it feel for you? Did you feel any difference between the first and the second time?
I mean, the second time was a little bit awkward because I had to pause a little bit more and like really enunciate.
Yeah.
But I felt like it sounded better.
It did.
Okay.
What you do when you open your mouth is you project your voice so it's much clearer, so your articulation is clearer, and it's actually louder without you shouting. And those small things can give you better projection and give you better credibility, and people will pay attention. Very often when I go to a panel discussion or I'm speaking, it's incredible how you lose interest. People can sometimes lose interest because they don't feel you're connecting with them, and they go on their phone and they start thinking about what they're having for dinner. You have to work really hard to let your listeners know that if one of them was to walk out the room, you'd notice. And each communication should be exhausting, because you have to not restrict yourself. You have to give as much of yourself as you can. Right. And that will make you a stronger communicator.
That's a really good point, because as a communicator, as part of my job, that's really important. I mean, keeping them engaged and making sure that they are not going on their phone or thinking about something else. I mean, they may not be on their phone, but they may be thinking about something else if you're not engaging with them. So that's a great point. So what would you kind of call that technique?
I called it conviction, but really it's having energy and caring about what you're saying, because let's face it, your ideas are important, and when you go and meet people that you want to partner with or get information from, it's crucial, and they should feel that urgency, they should feel that conviction. So there's credibility, which is key, but without conviction and energy and caring about what you're saying, why should your audience care?
Exactly. That's a great point. So what are the 3 C's again? Let's recap.
I haven't done the last one.
Oh, you haven't done the last one? Oh, see? No. Okay, fantastic. So let's come to perfect segue. What's that last C?
A lot of people ask me about PowerPoint and notes, and many people say, I need my notes. I have notes here, but I tell them, when you're talking to your friends and family, you don't look at the floor or look at the air molecules to think about your content. So many people are so wrapped up in their content that they forget. Ultimately, the third C, connection, you're there to connect with your audience. And it's bridging that gap and enabling them to connect with you and see the real you, authenticity. And that's what great speakers understand how to do. Authenticity is the big umbrella, and then the credibility, the conviction, and the connection comes under that. So when you speak to somebody, really look at them and make them feel like you're seeing them.
Right.
Because listener awareness is really important, and drawing them in and have a conversation and let go of rigid rules that we've learned at university and at work, where we feel that we need to be so caught up about content, and give the audience, the true you, like you would if you were having a conversation with your wife or your parents. And that's really the key, bringing that all together and bridging that gap.
That's fantastic. Right. I mean, without having that connection, I mean, people are just going to walk away getting nothing.
I'm sure they'll get something. I'm sure what you need to say is important, but they might not. They might switch off,
right?
Or they might be on their phone. But if you're really engaged with them, even a big audience of like 1,000 people, if you start connecting with people in the audience, others will feel that connection and they'll be drawn in by you. And that's what seasoned speakers do. And that's why Trump is very effective.
Yes.
We feel like he's somebody that cuts through whatever it is and tells you things as it is. And you can resonate with that as an audience. So it's these small techniques that can really shift and move the needle to get people to listen to what you're saying.
That's fantastic. Well, Sabina, I can tell you're a great communicator. And I think we've really learned a lot today. Thank you for sharing your insights. It's been really eye-opening, and it's been great for me. I know I'm using those 3 C's, in my diplomatic career for sure.
Very good.
And I'm certainly going to be thinking twice about reading from PowerPoint slides in the future and really connecting directly with people.
Yeah, you can use slides, but if you're going to use a PowerPoint slide, don't put a lot of text on it, because what happens is you'll lose your audience. They're going to start reading your slides and not listening to you. So the worst combination is having lots of text, people reading it, and then you talking.
Yeah.
Have maybe a few images and some keywords, but I would say death by PowerPoint.
Oh, absolutely.
You would know this because we've spoken about this before the podcast. You don't use PowerPoint, and that is really important.
I've really tried, recently to be, just have some notes and speak directly to the audience, because what I found is, especially post-COVID, we've all had to do presentations. We've all had to be on Zoom. Everyone's using presentations. Yeah. And it's just really death by PowerPoint. People just want to know what you have to say quickly, concisely, with conviction, as you said, and connect. And that's what they really want. They want connection with you. Yeah. They don't want to connect with what's on the screen. So I find that everyone should practice, using, don't use PowerPoints at all. Yeah. Have everything in your mind, or have some notes and use that. And that, to me, to your point about connection, every time you use a technology to communicate, that's one layer away from connecting with people.
Yeah, you have to just work so much harder. Yeah,
I find that.
Because you're bridging an entire space. People are in different countries, they're in different cities, and they might, and you have to really work hard at your communication when you're doing it remotely.
Absolutely. And people get lost. They're reading the PowerPoints. You're saying something important.
Yeah.
They're not getting it. So I find that, as we move, especially now with AI that can, push out a PowerPoint presentation for you in 5 seconds.
Right.
We need to start going towards more authentic communication, where it's just us.
Exactly.
It's in our voices. And I think, especially when we were talking about the Women's Empowerment Summit, I think women's voices are so powerful.
Yeah.
That the more they use that, and the more they stand in their voice, they can be so much more powerful. As they move forward.
I think with women, because I've worked with a lot of women and I've worked with women in leadership, they tend to be so caught up in what they're going to say, and they play it over and over again in their head, and they're afraid sometimes to use that voice, or if they come across as a bit too authoritarian, then no one's going to want to work with them. But they should just use that and work with it, because if they engage, if they connect, even if they're speaking with authority, which is a good thing,
Yeah, absolutely.
they shouldn't be afraid, and they should use it more. But sometimes people don't know what to practice. Practice what if they don't understand where their gaps are and how they can improve? So that's where we come in.
Exactly.
And hopefully can help.
That's fantastic. Well, Sabina, thank you so much for the
Thank
conversation
you.
today. It's been really eye-opening. Thank you so much
Well,
for
thank
the
you
time.
for having me.
Awesome. And to all of our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to Stars, Stripes, and Insights. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, I'm pretty sure you did, and I'm sure you learned something, please don't forget to subscribe and follow for more discussions. Until next time, remember, effective communication isn't just about talking. It's about making an impact. Stay tuned, stay engaged, and as always, stay curious. Thank you so much.